And I now recognize Mr. Carroll for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Higgins, Ranking Member Correa, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Ivey, and the members of the subcommittee, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the evil of child trafficking caused by the open border policies under President Joe Biden and his administration. I served in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years until I retired as a Deputy Patrol Agent in charge in San Diego sector. I worked under 5 presidential administrations, and only one president secured the border, President Donald Trump. Border Patrol agents went from working and being supported by the greatest border president in American history to the worst, President Joe Biden. My last year in the Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year in office. On his first day in office, I watched in disbelief as 94 executive orders cascaded down from Washington, D.C., obliterating every immigration policy that had been provided the most secure border in America's history. Border Patrol agents were forced to carry out unconstitutional orders.
For y'all who don't understand what he just said, he's saying that out of all the presidents that he worked under, only one secured the border, and that was President Trump. After President Trump left, he's saying that under Biden, they changed over 94 executive orders as it pertains to Border Patrol and illegal immigrant. Okay, they changed, their administration changed a whole bunch of stuff. So now under this administration, the employees have to do things differently. So if he's saying that the border was secure under Trump, or where the numbers were down with this illegal immigration, and then Biden comes in and they change a whole bunch of orders, guess what? Either the border is going to be more secure or the border is going to be less secure. But we can all agree a change will be made if he's coming in and changing the executive orders for anything. This shit is ridiculous.
That violated every law in the Immigration Nationality Act. President Biden, through Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, created policy out of thin air, ignored federal immigration law, and facilitated the largest mass invasion into America that the world has ever seen. The United States of America will have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in 4 years to fund the needs of over 50 million illegal aliens that populate our nation. Between 1 in 6 and 1 in 7 residents in America is an illegal alien. America has suffered the greatest demographic shift in modern history. After serving in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years, spending a year researching and writing a best-selling book entitled Invaded, The Intentional Destruction of the American Immigration System, and filming 2 documentaries, I state with complete certainty that Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas intentionally, strategically, and purposely weaponized illegal immigration and used it as a tool to fundamentally transform America. Inside this invasion, the unspoken evil of child trafficking, and more specifically, child sex trafficking, has flourished. At the end of this current administration, the number of children trafficked will have grown to over 550,000 unaccompanied alien children known as UACs. This horrific number of children will have been arrested, released into America, and then lost. To put this into context,
listen to what he just said. These children would have been arrested and then released into the United States. Now think about what he just said, and what the illegal immigrant that just went to trial for the killing of, I think her name is Lakin. Please don't quote me. I think her name is Lakin, but he just had a trial. Think about what he just said. That is exactly what they reported was done to that illegal immigrant. The United States knew in 2022 that this man was here illegally. Him and his brother. There was an article on it. They knew he was here illegally with his brother in 2022. They arrested him, but they released him on parole in the United States. And then 2 years later, guess what? He's charged with a crime. They left him here. He came in, they said, through Texas. That's where he got arrested. That's also where he was released because he unalived. Let me say it like that. He unalived Miss Lakin in Georgia. This happened in Georgia. How the hell did he get from Texas as a parolee to Georgia, and the parole officer don't know nothing about it. Who the hell is this parole officer? I didn't read anything about the parole officers at all. But the article said he was paroled. So if you're paroled, you have a parole officer. Who the hell was it? Who the hell were they? Like I said, does anybody know? I mean, who were the parole officers? I mean, we're going off of what they said now. They said that this illegal immigrant that unalived her, they knew was an illegal immigrant, and they paroled him out. I don't understand how they parole an illegal immigrant out on U.S. soil, and this person is not even a citizen. So why are you here? Why are you being let out on U.S. soil instead of sit back over to where you came from? How the hell you go from Texas to Georgia and your parole officers don't know nothing about it? Then they tried to say that the brother tried to give them a fake green card. Where to get it from? How to get it? And if they don't speak English, guess what? It makes it even harder. So now you got to find a translator and hope that their translator is working with integrity. This is bullshit. Bullshit.
President Trump's last year in office, Customs and Border Protection arrested 30,557 UACs who were accounted for and not lost. Conversely, in the first year of Biden's presidency, CBP arrested 147,975 UACs, most of which are unaccompanied for and lost. In 2023, Congressional Hearings Health and Human Services Javier Becerra and Director of Office of Refugee Resettlement Robin Marcos forced to admit that their agency had no contact with over 85,000 UACs. They were lost. What did DHS, HHS, and ORR do to correct this humanitarian disaster? Nothing. In fact, all three agencies created further policies and procedures to increase the efficiency of moving UACs from the border to the interior of the United States to unknown and unvetted sponsors. Unaccompanied alien children were being handed off to total strangers. Then they disappeared into the darkness of labor and sex trafficking. In fact, a year later, in August of 2024, the Inspector General, with oversight over DHS, issued a report stating the number lost UACs was not 85,000, it was over 320,000. My business partner, Ryan Matt, and I spent 6 months traveling across America, filming a documentary titled, What is Treason Trafficked? The evil of child sex trafficking is difficult to digest and understand. However, after conducting numerous interviews with officers, agents, and whistleblowers from every alphabet agency and department, it was made clear to us that the federal government knowingly and actively facilitated these criminal acts. After several exhaustive months of filming, interviewing, and then editing this documentary, I state without reservation that the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history.
Did you hear that? He didn't say Britain. He didn't say Africa. He didn't say Asia. He didn't say none of these other countries. He said the U.S. is the biggest facilitator of child trafficking. I want y'all to keep that shit in mind. When y'all are out here looking at these fucking videos where these survivors are coming out and they're speaking and they're telling you what was done to them, I want you to pay attention to the fact that P. Diddy is in jail and he's involved with the child trafficking, allegedly. And I want you to also pay attention to the alleged crimes put out there against these other people. Like Obama, Joe Biden, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce Knowles, Sean Carter. Pay attention. Please pay attention. Y'all should be seeing similarities at this point. And keep in mind, like minds attract. You're going to deal with people who think like you. And that's who these people have been dealing with.
The probability that thousands of these UACs are being raped at this very moment is 100%. The call to action has three parts, my call to action, and they're swift, and they happen at the same time. Every means necessary is to be taken to ensure all four borders of the United States of America are sealed shut. Two, there's a national law enforcement emergency to locate and rescue every single one of the 550,000 unaccompanied alien children that are lost. Three, a full-scale investigation of every U.S. department, agency, and every NGO participating in this.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, CPS? Did you hear that? Y'all better get ready.
Criminal act shall be launched, and every person involved shall be arrested. Finally, the intentional opening of our borders is an act of treason. I encourage questions, so I may further articulate this allegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I recognize Ms. Hopper for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Chairman Higgins, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Carrera, and Ranking Member Ivey, and the distinguished members of the committees. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for prioritizing this important issue. Human trafficking is one of the greatest humanitarian crises of our lifetime. In the 5 minutes I speak today, men, women, and children are being sold, exploited, and brutalized within our borders. As a Hispanic mother, this crisis is deeply personal to me. I have witnessed firsthand the unimaginable suffering experienced by migrants on both sides of the US-Mexico border. In one interview I conducted, a local resident whose property straddles the border told me about the screams of women and children he hears, including just 2 days before my visit. I walked these very paths, and I found discarded clothing, personal belongings, and chilling evidence of brutal assaults, all under the control of ruthless cartels like the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. No one passes through without their approval. Among the discarded items, I found IDs, many belonging to children, some real, others forged or burned. One was the passport of a 5-year-old Colombian girl. A haunting reminder of the dangers these children face. Traffickers erase migrant identities to smuggle them in under false names. In an interview with a former Sinaloa cartel affiliate, he revealed how cartels use advanced technology to forge documents and erase children's identities before crossing into the US. Tragically, the horrors don't end at the border. The very system meant to protect vulnerable children has become a trafficking pipeline. An OIG report recently revealed that 324,000 unaccompanied children processed at the border are currently accounted for. Policies from the Biden-Harris administration prioritizing speed over safety have placed children with unvetted sponsors, increasing their risk. Furthermore, this administration's decision to eliminate DNA testing to verify familial relationships has created dangerous loopholes, which traffickers are now currently aware of and actively exploiting. A young girl who arrived at the border in the custody of individuals claiming to be her family was bruised, disoriented, and in pain. Medical examinations revealed that she had been raped, yet she was sent back to her abusers because no verification was done to confirm her guardianship. This is not an isolated case, but a glaring failure of the system, leaving children in the hands of those who exploit them. The failure extends beyond the government to NGOs contracted by ORR to care for these children. During my research, I interviewed auditors tasked with inspecting an NGO-run facility in Pecos, Texas, and it exposed a lack of oversight with critical information filtered to mask abuse, neglect, and trafficking, as seen in the DOJ lawsuit against Southwest Key for sexual abuse of children in those shelters. Meanwhile, taxpayer dollars fund no-bid contracts for these NGOs, whose CEOs have tripled their salaries, hire staff teaching migrant girls to dance provocatively, and continue receiving payments for undelivered services.
I just want y'all to know that she's telling the truth on that. I have seen a picture of a baby. Whew. I have seen a picture of a baby. This baby couldn't have been no more than 4, maybe 5, with lingerie on, like she's a grown woman. Her face was made up with makeup. She had on lipstick. She had on heels. Walking with a grown-ass fucking man. I cannot tell y'all I can't tell y'all how triggering this is for me. As a survivor, let me tell you something. If you've never walked a day in our shoes, any of us, it may be hard for you to fathom, but you need to deal with the fact that it's our reality is what we went through. And it's a damn shame that it has taken this fucking long. Think about how many children have been victims of this shit. And how long it has been swept under the rug. How long nothing was done because there was no evidence, no reports, no tracking, no one to corroborate what a child was seeing. None of you could ever approach me that think like this. None of you. I will attack you. Verbally first, I will attack you. Don't ever. Don't ever.
The crisis does not end there. Trafficking extends beyond sexual exploitation and forced labor to organ harvesting. During a recent interview I conducted in a Central American prison, the convicted trafficker described organs being harvested in places like veterinary clinics in Merida, Mexico, recounting the removal of 3 livers, often sold to U.S. buyers.
Did you just hear that? Did y'all just hear that? Remember, Mr. Ivy from Maryland said that he read about the organ and it was new to him, but that he didn't see any images or anything else to help them understand. What the hell? What you need to see an image of somebody's kidney being taken from them? Ms. Hopper just read that she interviewed a convicted trafficker, a person who had direct knowledge of what was happening. And he told her about the organ donating and that some of the biggest buyers were U.S. citizens.
Another trafficker revealed that migrant children are the frequent targets. My colleague, Dr. Jared Sadolsky, testified last year about a 12-year-old boy whose eye was harvested in Mexico for $15,000. We need rigorous oversight, strong accountability, and where necessary, criminal prosecution of those who fail to protect these children. We must designate cartels as terrorist organizations, reinstate DNA testing, and demand accountabilities from NGOs and government agencies responsible for these children. With this new administration, the American people have issued a clear and urgent mandate, one that now rests in your hands. With top-down support, the trust of the American people, and the eyes of the world upon you, you have a profound opportunity to lead with decisive action. Today, over 324,000 children are unaccounted for, each one a life in desperate need of our protection. We cannot afford to wait any longer. These children's future depends on what we do today. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hopper. I now recognize Ms. Laren for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Chairman Higgins, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Correa, Ranking Member Ivy, and members of the subcommittees. Thank you for inviting me here today to discuss GAO's work on the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement and its role in the care and release of unaccompanied children. In reports we issued in 2016 and 2020, we called on the agency to better ensure that those who provide care to unaccompanied children are qualified, to strengthen its oversight and monitoring of facilities housing these children, and to better track services that are provided to children after they're released to sponsors. HHS has made significant progress in addressing our recommendations, but as I will discuss today, more can be done to safeguard unaccompanied children. Every year, thousands of children enter the United States without a parent or guardian and without lawful immigration status. And the number of unaccompanied children has increased substantially over time, from about 14,000 in 2012 to around 119,000 in 2023. Many of these children have been exposed to trauma and violence, and they're at increased risk of becoming victims of child trafficking.
I want y'all also to think about, how are the kids getting over here? Not all the kids are coming from Mexico. They're not all coming from Mexico. How are they getting over here? They're coming from other countries. How are they getting over here? Let's think about how the United States is able to get resources from one place to another. That's all I'm gonna say.
The Office of Refugee Resettlement, or ORR, is the primary agency responsible for ensuring the safety and well-being of children that enter the country unaccompanied. ORR awards grants to providers that care for children in shelters, foster homes, treatment facilities, and other types of facilities until the children are placed with sponsors. Both state licensing agencies and ORR play a role in overseeing the facilities to ensure the health and safety of children in their care. Reports we issued in 2016 and 2020 identified several significant lapses in ORR's implementation of policies and procedures affecting the quality of care provided to these children. Since that time, ORR has taken action to address all 9 of our recommendations, and we've closed 5 recommendations as implemented. Specifically, with regard to ensuring that care providers are qualified to provide care, we found that ORR did not have up-to-date and accurate information about whether applicants were licensed, and as a result, awarded grants to providers who did not have a license to operate or who were unable to obtain one. We also found that ORR either did not have information or did not consider information that they did have about past allegations and concerns when awarding grants, including concerns that providers were not meeting standards to protect the health and safety of children. As a result, grants were renewed even when there were significant outstanding child safety concerns uncovered during monitoring. We made 3 recommendations to address these gaps, and ORR has fully or partially addressed all 3. With regard to oversight and monitoring of facilities, we also found significant gaps. These ranged from providers not consistently notifying ORR about issues that could affect their state license, to ORR and state licensing agencies failing to share information about their activities and findings, which could hamper effective oversight. We made 4 recommendations to address these deficiencies, and ORR has taken action on all 4 and fully addressed 2. In addition, we found that ORR was not meeting its own monitoring goals. For example, they weren't always notifying providers right away when they found a compliance issue, and they weren't following up to ensure that issues were resolved in a timely way. Our recommendation in this area was fully addressed. I'd like to turn now to the question of what happens to children after they're released from ORR care. In 2016, we found there was limited information on follow-up and services provided to children after they were placed with sponsors. At that time, only a small percentage of children were eligible for post-release services. But as of November 2023, all children and sponsors are to have 3 virtual check-ins to confirm that children are residing with their sponsors, enrolled in and attending school, aware of upcoming court dates, and are healthy and safe. We recommended that ORR develop a process to ensure information on its post-release efforts is reliable and systematically collected, and this recommendation is still relevant and open. ORR has taken some action to revamp its case management system to include tracking of children post-release. Officials have told us that these enhancements will be complete at the end of 2024. This concludes my statement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Laren. I now recognize Ms. Rodas for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Good afternoon, Chairman Higgins, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Correa, Ranking Member Ivy, and distinguished members of the committees. I thank you for inviting me to testify at this critical hearing on the crisis of trafficked, exploited, and the staggering 320,000 missing migrant children. Today, my goal is to spark action to rescue children, prosecute traffickers, and dismantle trafficking infrastructure. We must prevent children from being lost into slave labor, commercial sex, organ harvesting, and other unspeakable evils. Migrant children are working overnight shifts in slaughterhouses and factories, and some may die today because they don't have the knowledge or skills to do the job that they're supposed to be doing. But they're doing it because they need to repay debts to their smugglers and traffickers. Children, boys and girls, are being sold for sex. Just last month, I spoke with a care provider in Florida who told me about cases of migrant children as young as 8 with sexually transmitted diseases. 8 years old. Last week, I spoke with a private investigator in Texas who shared challenges trying to find an emergency shelter for this one girl. She's only 12, an unaccompanied minor who was 9 months pregnant and about to go into labor. How did we get here?
Did you hear that? That baby was 12, unaccompanied, and pregnant. The 8-year-old had an STD. Are y'all eyes open now? Are y'all hearing? Are y'all being in the present with what the hell you are hearing? These are more people coming forth and telling you about the shit that has been happening to these children. How can you not be outraged after hearing this shit? And these are unaccompanied minors from other countries. We're not even talking about the minors from the US that are in this shit. I'm so sick.
How did we get here? For over a decade, the United States Department of Health and Human Services has been responsible for the suffering of countless children. HHS has a 10-year demonstrated record of losing children to sponsors who abuse, exploit, traffic, and harm children in unthinkable ways. Now, to be fair to HHS, they are not an investigative or law enforcement agency. HHS simply does not have the knowledge, skills, ability, or the tradecraft to protect children from traffickers. Child trafficking has evolved into an international syndicate of gangs and cartels. It's highly organized and efficient. It mirrors the tactics and operations of terrorist organizations. Smugglers and traffickers have moved more than 500,000 children. They've flooded across our borders, and we have delivered them to criminals and traffickers and members of transnational program as a logistical chain in their trafficking operation. These children are not merely victims, they are hostage of transnational criminals and the financial backbone of material support for organizations seeking to profit off of the lives of children. This simply must change. Now, there is hope if we act with urgency. Let's implement simple safety measures like DNA testing for children and their sponsors. Let's implement stringent penalties, like prison, for sponsors who are unable to produce the children they are in charge of. And again, there's hope if we act, but action must include oversight, transparency, and accountability. Now, according to oversight conducted by Senator Grassley, who's been a true champion of these endangered children, HHS failed to fully comply with subpoenas that were issued by DHS to investigate evidence of child exploitation the senator referred to law enforcement earlier this year. That's just simply unacceptable. HHS should be commanded to comply with the Inspector General Empowerment Act to enable cross-agency data sharing. And let's treat child trafficking as the national security threat that it truly is. Let's mobilize the full power of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to dismantle these criminal networks. 1, we can elevate the activity of child trafficking on the NIPIF, which is the National Intelligence Priority Framework. Number 2, we can designate child trafficking as a terrorist activity so that centers like the National Counterterrorism Center, the Terrorist Screening Center, the National Targeting Center can provide the manpower, the tradecraft, and immediate implementation of targeting these trafficking networks. Every child lost to the current system is a tragedy. We cannot be a nation that looks the other way. We have a moral imperative to care for children that the government takes into custody. And the time to act is now. Children are in need now. Children are depending on you now. And I thank you for your time and your attention to this crisis of this trafficked, exploited, and missing children. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Rodas. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. America needs to understand that the historical model of the cartel operations has changed quite drastically in the last 4 years. We had always envisioned that criminal cartels, essentially born in their modern form in the 80s and 90s, have taken control of the criminal operations and the pipelines for drugs and human beings across Central America and Mexico up to our entire southern border, which is 1,954 miles of sovereign border. And as Americans, we envision that cartels operate south of that border. They traffic drugs and human beings to the border. They make a lot of money doing it. It's all criminal. They're brutal. And we have envisioned that there was always a measure of sovereign protection of our nation at the southern border, and cartel operations sort of stopped. We also recognize that within the interior of our country, we have traditional criminal networks that exist exist in our densities of population, commonly run by gangs. And those operations, although similar to cartel operations, were not nearly as organized or incredibly well funded, but they operated independently of the cartels in many hundreds of factions across the country. And what America has to understand right now is that the cartel operations now operate across the entire United States, and their pipelines continue through Central America and Mexico, across our southern border, into our major cities. I have reports of entire buildings held by cartels, old hotels and apartment complexes. The cartels are buying for cash, taking possession of for cash.
Remember y'all, in New York, where Mayor Adams got arrested, remember the illegal immigrants there were staying in a hotel. They had them housed in a hotel, giving out $300 and something debit cards for them to use to get food and shit. And we got all these homeless people out here, especially vets. We got all these homeless people out here, including our vets, and illegal immigrants are being housed in hotels. What? How the fuck did we get here?
They're running their operations out of there, not one, but several buildings like that, in a density of population, a network of sexual slavery operations and drug distribution operations, each easy to walk away from on short notice of a pending raid by law enforcement. America has to understand that this has happened, that historically the cartels would bring their product, human beings and drugs, to the southern border. It'd be some level of interaction by CBP, by federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, and then unaccompanied children would be processed through HHS and turned over to non-government organizations, where they would be turned over to family sponsors, either family or non-family, but sponsors that were vetted in some manner. This is a memorandum of understanding that operated for a long time. It was quite significant, between the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the beginning process by which unaccompanied children were delivered to sponsors that were vetted. Because of the volume of children that were coming across in the last 4 years, and a part of that, the HHS and DHS joint statement of termination of disagreement, and this is from March of 2021, my brothers and sisters. This was a policy decision to step away from the strict means by which these children were monitored and controlled. And what it was replaced with was this sponsor care agreement. There's nothing to this. It's 3.5 pages, 2 pages of nothing that the criminal networks can easily take advantage of. So we have now delivered hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children to unvetted sponsors that have enslaved them across our country. Ms. Hopper, you have done some brilliant research on the connection between trafficking, human trafficking, south of the border, and as it networks into our country. Please expound upon what I've been discussing today.
Thank you, Chairman Higgins. You're correct. The terrorists, the cartels, sorry, the terms are interchangeable to me. They do know our policies and the 94 actions that were rescinded upon the new current administration coming in. And they actually do use our programs and the manner in which we process unaccompanied children against us. They actually use Border Patrol and refer to them as migrant Uber. They know once migrants cross the border, it's one phone call away. The Border Patrol picks them up and processes them. And then they know to write the number and name of the sponsor the child. Sorry.
I'm not stopping. I'm just telling you we're out of time.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, ma'am. My time has expired, and I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear your testimony, and it.
How do the traffickers know our policies enough that they can circumvent them? How do the traffickers know our policies enough that they can circumvent them?
Anybody who's listening to your testimony has to cringe to think of what you're saying and the words, what they mean. Looking at some data, the biggest group of sex trafficked minors, reported cases, are American citizen children in the United States. So the chairman's discussion that this is an international ring, operating across international lines is absolutely correct. We have a lot of work to do. We're going to have to work with our partners to make sure we begin to address this challenge. But I'm going to ask each one of you very succinctly, tell me, what would you do that would be quick and effective to stop sex trafficking? Mr. Carroll, a few words, a couple of sentences.
Yes, sir. In order to stop child sex trafficking coming across the border must be closed, period.
To tourists, to commerce, all of the above.
Sir, we have ports of entry. That's where we come through. Ports of entry. We don't come through the steel fence. No, thank you.
Ms. Hopper, what would you say? What would your answer be?
To actually build on what Mr. Krell was saying, once the borders are closed, reinstate DNA testing.
Thank you. Ms. Laren.
You know, we found that child trafficking is complex. It involves law enforcement, it involves services to children, it involves multiple programs across the federal government. I think better coordination between those programs will help.
Ms. Rodas.
I believe we must designate child trafficking as a terrorist activity. This would unlock critical counterterrorism tools, including expanded intelligence collection, interagency collaboration, and financial sanctions to dismantle trafficking infrastructure through interagency
Would that include
collaboration.
additional resources?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman yields, and Mr. Bishop is recognized.
So, Mr. Carroll, we're hearing some amazing things today. Children being sacrificed to harvest organs. Of course, somebody said they don't, Mr. Ivy said he's not so sure about that.
Nobody cares, Mr. Ivy. Nobody cares. You're oblivious anyway. I mean, you can't believe nothing unless it's in your face. So I would never talk to you about anything.
You got the amazing 8-year-old with sexually transmitted diseases, 12-year-old, 9 months pregnant. My colleagues on the minority are very concerned, though, about your language. What do you think of that?
I find it fascinating and interesting that after hearing about all this testimony, and right now, thousands of children are being raped. That's just statistical probability, 100%. Children are being murdered, and I'm going to quote President Trump when he said, a lot of these children are already dead, end quote. What I find fascinating is all of this that we got to talk about, all this tragedy that we're dealing with. And we want to talk about what I said about Speaker Johnson in a podcast that I don't even remember.
Exactly. Remember, I just said that Mr. Ivy from Maryland decides to take the focus, distract from the focus, which is about the children and the trafficking, to talk about something that Mr. Carroll said on a podcast about mass migration and how deadly and whatever it could be. I can tell when I'm dealing with a lefty.
I think maybe it goes back to the congressman. Would he like to ask me a question that has any relevance to helping secure these children? And then you go back further, sir. The reason why we are in this position is because we destroyed the border, not just the southern border, the northern border, and both coastlines. This is a tragedy, and it is treason, because this is not bad policy or bad mistakes or somebody's incompetent. This is intentional. So when you do intentional acts against your nation, that is treason. And I'll be glad to talk about Speaker Johnson and him funding NGOs to the hilt. I would love to talk about that as well.
Ms. Hopper, I've sat in another briefing on this subject, and one of the witnesses there, a libertarian guy, as I recall, sort of said, these people that have all gone off grid, the people that ORR can't contact, it's not, there's no problem. That they don't want to, they sort of live, they don't want to have contact with official sources, but they're fine. I find that to be amazing, but can you respond to that? I mean, you've seen a fair number of things, it sounds like.
So if American citizens can't deflect from agencies like CPS and just respond and say, oh, these children are fine, you don't need to do a home check or foster care checks or welfare checks on American citizens, and you don't take American citizens' words that the children are fine, why would you take the word of a sponsor who you don't know, don't have accurate background records, and if they are an illegal migrant, many background checks haven't been done on them. So we are handing kids over to known MS-13 members and known pedophiles. So
let's just say that. Let's just say that. Let's just fucking say that, okay? This is pedophilia at a grand level, okay? That is what this is. Something that this country for sure does not want to face. Well, now's the time. Now is the fucking time for you to pay attention. That you have a lot of adults that are attracted to children. They care about the benefit of children, even if that means harming them. We're talking about humans. We're talking about human beings that are being resourced all around the world. And a lot of it has to do with pedophiles getting their fix. This shit makes me sick to my stomach. For anybody to know what the hell is going on and not be engaged, not want to do something. After you've heard it, you cannot say you don't know anymore. Now you know. You know now. And just so y'all know, even U.S. citizens have a problem in the foster care. Not all abuse is reported. Not all abuse is followed up on. Instead, the children keep getting moved from house to house to house. Now ask me how I know. So if it's happening to U.S. children, U.S. citizens, it's happening with them for sure. It's happening with the legal children for sure.
I'm sorry, I'm not willing to take someone's word that the child is okay.
Isn't that unbelievable, callous indifference to take the position that these people are just, not wanting to be in touch with authorities? Isn't that a horrific disregard of human beings that are being abused and suffering? Do you agree?
I agree.
Ms. Rodas, Mr. Correa, I believe, just made the point that the United States is already I think he said the leading location of sex trafficking in the United States. We've been having whatever resources are in law enforcement already sorely tested. What will happen to the American children that might be rescued from sex trafficking if our already overtaxed, overburdened law enforcement resources have to bear this additional immense burden? What's going to? Aren't they all going to suffer? All the children who would benefit from those services if you just have more and more of them, unless we can pay more and more. How much would it cost? How many trillions of dollars would it cost to stop this entirely?
Well, I would submit that you could save a few $1 billion by not running the program in the manner that it's being run. I'm very unclear as to why we're luring children to the United States to be the white glove delivery system of these children to known MS-13, 18th Street Gang, Russian Balkan crime syndicates, and other unsavory characters. We've known since February of 2021 when DHS whistleblower Aaron Stevenson came forward. We've known since 2015 when DHS whistleblower Jason Piccolo came forward. The children are being used.
My time's expired,
Yes,
and
sir.
very well said. Someone may get a chance to follow up.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Ivy is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rhodes, you picked up 2 books there. What were they?
So this book is actually called Out of Shadows by Dr. Jason Piccolo. He was the very first whistleblower in 2015. So prior to when the chairman referenced the severing of the DHS and HHS information sharing agreement because they didn't want chilling on their sponsors, at one point, this brave whistleblower, when he was looking and had the ability to look at the data, said, hey, we are giving children to criminals and pedophiles and traffickers. And that was 2015.
Okay, that's 2015. And what was the other book I think you had?
Oh, it wasn't a book, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I referenced Aaron Stevenson, who is the DH whistleblower from 2021. He was the TOC mission expert, that's the Transnational Organized Crime mission expert, and he identified the very first time in the history of the program that a TOC member, because of all the relaxation of the vetting, was able to sponsor a child. And that brave whistleblower lost his job for coming forward to expose child.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? This whistleblower came forward. I want y'all to think about this and just pay attention. This shit is tying together like, oh my God. I just was talking about how this is ridiculous how much the government is keeping from us. And they work for us. Okay? And anybody who attempts to go outside of whatever litigation bullshit they've come up with, if you try to go outside of that, i.e. tell, they take away your livelihood, i.e. your job. They will. Why is that? Somebody came forward to let people know that what is supposed to be happening is not happening. They're making an effort to bring it to the public's attention. Why? Because they work for the government. They work for the public. And as soon as they let the public know what is actually happening, they lose their fucking job. That is no different than these survivors out here telling you the truth about what they have experienced, what they have seen, what is going on, and you're steady talking about where's the fucking evidence. You damned if you do and damned if you don't. And that's why so many people have not came out and spoken. And it's fucking sad. They fear losing their livelihood, which is their money. That is more important to them. And why do they fear this? Because the government has made it this way. Oh, you told on us? Okay, now you don't have a job. Because you told. Why should they have to worry about not having a job for doing a fucking job? There's a reason for that. So sick.
Sex trafficking.
All right, let me ask a couple of questions to follow up on what I think I've heard. I think you and Ms. Hopper mentioned resuming DNA testing.
Yes.
As steps that should be taken. Prison for sponsors who lose their, I wrote charges, but unaccompanied children. I think that was you, Ms. Rodas, as a solution. Okay. Do you know if there's federal law that covers that, or do you think federal law would need to be implemented to address that?
We would probably need to say, yeah, we would need to put in a law because it doesn't currently exist. I think it's very important for people to understand, just like PRS is not enforceable.
Fair enough. I'm running out of time. I apologize. You also mentioned that you thought this was a 10-year problem, and you raised concerns about HHS not having the tools or the expertise to address some of these problems because of the cartel involvement, I take it, that has become part of this?
Well, even Mr. Carey, who used to formerly be with HHS, he's even said they're not law enforcement. They know they're not law enforcement.
So that would be DOJ then potentially, or other law enforcement entities that should be more involved with this?
Absolutely.
All right.
HHS.
And then
just so you know, you have corrupt law enforcement officials as well. And they work for the DOJ and FBI. So no. I'm telling you, they're everywhere. They're in all the agencies. You have so many corrupt people working for the government agencies. You don't know who to fucking trust because you don't know who is involved. How do you know that the information they're reporting back to you is done with integrity? You don't know. You don't know. This is so sad.
Boy, I think this was Ms. Lauren. You mentioned, to Mr. Correa too, that some of the changes that had been made, more accurate licenses, better information regarding past allegations of misconduct, because sometimes entities would, even though they'd been identified for misconduct, would still be receiving unaccompanied children. That needed to be addressed. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. And then you said something about improving the ability to confirm that kids are in school, aware of their court dates and the like. And I was curious about how that would be done. Would that, you'd have to increase the number of people who have oversight over these children, or how would that work?
I mean, what we're really asking for is documentation. We're asking that when they reach out and children receive post-release services, HHS keeps a record of that so that they can show which kids have gotten the services, which haven't. And
I
that's
see.
what they
So
have been able to do.
the kids reach out, if they call, for example, that would be tracked.
No, it's exactly.
So I want y'all to remember that Ally Carter said that when she was trafficked through, or when she was in foster care, and being trafficked by a pimp, she went to CPS to report all the shit that was happening to her, and they did nothing. They just kept moving her. That's what they did. Also, she also said that when she was in school, remember, in 1 year, she was in 19 different schools. In 1 year. 1 year. And also, that some of the teachers were abusing her. Some of the teachers, they would report her as being present in school so it wouldn't throw off alarms. So you got teachers involved. So when we say government, we're not just talking about senators. We're talking about the people who work for the government as well. Work in these government agencies. Work in these public schools. Any public place. Can you say that making sure that kids are attending school the way that they're supposed to be attending school is going to be tracked with integrity? At this point, I would say no. I would say no. No. Not when you got teachers on the fucking payroll. No.
You identified issues, but I think the ones you mentioned were in Mexico. Are there any you're pointing to in the United States? Not that that makes it better, but I just want to make sure we know what we're talking about here.
You are correct. You had mentioned that there were no footnotes. I was not going to put a incarcerated cartel member's information out there, but that would be the footnote. However, they were harvested for buyers that were in the U.S. looking for those organs.
For footnotes, what I would mean in that instance would be, for example, if there are cases that have been brought to prosecute, you could cite those. But but the fact that I just want to nail down they're not in the United States. Mr. Carroll, you made an allegation about organ harvesting as well. Are you saying that's taking place in the United States or somewhere else?
In my documentary, I interviewed multiple people.
Please give me the quick answer.
Yes, this happened in America, and to deny that is
I'm not asking you to deny it, but have any charges been brought against anyone for doing that?
I don't know that right now. So.
Okay. And then you mentioned that as your three parts of your solution, every single one of the 550,000 unaccompanied children should be identified. After they are identified, what's the next step in the process that would happen there? What happens to those kids after we identify them?
You make sure they're safe.
In what way? What do you have in mind?
I don't understand.
I mean, this man seems like he's fucking clueless. Why the hell are you in Congress? Do you not know anything? You don't know how to take care of a child. You don't know how to support a child. You don't know what would be required to implement support and facility for these children. You have no idea. You're looking for other people to give you the solution. I don't like this man. I don't like this fucking man. Ew. He's ugh. Ew. I feel like he's out of touch with this situation. And I feel like he's trying to bring adversity to Mr. Carroll. He's very, to me, he comes off very challenging to Mr. Carroll. After we identify them, what do we do with them? How about what do we do with the children? He doesn't come off to me very supportive of this conversation. He clearly is somebody who thinks logically. He's a logical thinker, which means that he's lacking in other areas. He's dominantly, I'm telling you, he is dominantly logical. That is a problem when we're talking about a situation that requires you to show your humanity. That is a problem for these types of people.
Mr. Guest is recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carroll, first I want to thank you for your 24 years of service to your country and for all that you are doing to call attention to the crisis along our southwest border. Ms. Hopper, also want to thank you as well. Direct my questions first to you, Ms. Hopper. So, as we move into this, I just want to give you a minute to enlighten our committee about what you have found as it relates specifically to drug cartels, which are now moving into this disturbing new arena of harvesting organs of individuals attempting to come to the United States.
Thank you for the opportunity to expand on that. During the interview with the former Sinaloa cartel affiliate, he expanded on a lot of what you highlighted. He expanded on the fact that these migrant children, especially if they're traveling without their parent, there is no way to communicate whether they've made it through their journey or not. And if a cartel member or smuggler gets a call that there is a specific organ that they're looking for, they will scout out those organs and especially focus on migrant children, namely for the fact that they are vulnerable, they're unable to fight back, and, as horrid as it sounds, their organs are more, intact and in better shape. So there is no way to communicate with these children once they've crossed into the border, so they kind of disappear on the way.
And Mr. Carroll, let me ask you, because since you've also talked on this subject briefly, do you agree with the assessment of Ms. Hopper on the organ harvesting, and do you have anything that you would like to add?
Organ harvesting is real. To think that it's not, that we're trafficking, this federal government is bringing children over, they're being lost, sexually mutilated, sexually raped, murdered, and then we're shocked. We're appalled that there could be organ harvesting. The people I've interviewed, multiple people, said, and I asked them, is this an anomaly? Is this a one-off? No, this is pervasive and is growing daily.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Ms. Ramirez recognized for questioning.
Thank you, Chairman and ranking members. I'm not surprised that my Republican colleagues here, including one who has so candidly and callously posted racist tweets about Haitian immigrants, are calling up yet another witness with no credibility on the hearing topic, who believe in conspiracy theories, write about it, and promote lies, alt-right extremist ideologies, to be here.
Okay, now y'all might not like what I'm about to say, but I don't give a shit, because this is my opinion. Ms. Ramirez, who are you to say that they're bringing a witness on that has no credibility to the situation? This person that you're talking about was 24 years securing our border under the policies set forth by whatever administration. You're going to tell him he doesn't know anything about organ harvesting, and he doesn't know anything about the child mutilation and stuff that's going on? Why wouldn't he know? Did you not hear him say he went through a 6-month documentary? A time when he was getting information from these people and they were telling him what was going on? Are you crazy, lady? Did you not hear anything? I don't understand these lefties.
On your X account, Mr. Carell, formerly Twitter.
Once again, this is another attempt to deflect from the situation, to distract from the focus of this hearing. Again, by somebody on the lefty who's bringing up stuff about somebody writing about a Haitian immigrant and all this other stuff. Oh my gosh, this is sickening.
Twitter, you ask, what is treason? Well, let me answer for you. This right here, this is treason. In one of your tweets, you claim violent January 6 rioters who destroyed public property and attempted to stop a democratic transition of power as political prisoners. I find it to be shameful that a formal law enforcement agent would defend a mob who beat law enforcement officers protecting this very...
What the fuck are we talking about? The insurrection on January 6th, 2020. Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? What the hell does the insurrection have to do with the topic at hand? This is why we can't get anything resolved now. This is why. This is why. And for the sake of their democracy, the only thing they know how to do is bring opposition. That's all they know how to do, is create argument. That's all they do. That is why nothing gets fixed. They're too busy pointing fingers. When this shit has been passed down from administration to administration. And it's sickening. And I get tired of hearing stupid ass shit like this to get us off on the focus. Because that's all that is. You're bringing attention to something that's irrelevant. Because you don't know how to deal, or you don't know how to really hone in on what you're fucking hearing. You don't know how. It's too uncomfortable. I don't know what to say about these types of people. I just can't stand it. It makes my stomach hurt.
Building. In another post, you write, mass deportations will be swift, but they will be deadly. Actually, I agree with you on that. They will be deadly. So I find it unforgivable that you, Trump, and Republican members of this committee would even advocate for it. In another post, you say we should destroy the federal government.
This stupid lady, what is she talking about? Why would Trump and so many others advocate for this type of thing? Why in the fuck were illegal immigrants allowed to stay here in the first fucking place? Why were they being invited over? In mass numbers. And not trapped. Nobody ever told them they had to do what they were supposed to do to be here. You're giving them our tax-paying dollars to feed them. And we got homeless veterans out here on the street. Homeless children out here on the street. Children that are in families that are not being taken care of at all. Are you kidding me? What the hell is wrong with these people? I'm gonna be more concerned about illegal immigrants in this country that are not supposed to be than I am about the children that were brought over here unaccompanied, or the children that are suffering in the care of DHS or CPS, HHS, all these damn agencies. What the fuck? This is the same party that claims to invest in the future of our country. What do you mean invest in the future of our country? What does that investment look like? The children are our future. They are the future. Hello? Investing how? Wouldn't someone that's claiming to invest in the future of this country think that it's important for the future of this country to be protected and secure? How the hell are they protected and secure and you're allowing all these illegal immigrants into the country? Allowing them to roam undocumented and untracked, and you also giving them tax-paying dollars to feed them. They're not taxpayers. But the children are innocent. How are the children getting into the country? How are they being trafficked and facilitated through government agencies? Oh my gosh, I can't stand listening to these people talk. Who the hell is this lady? How the hell do you know that's a lie? How you gonna call it a lie? How do you know it's a lie? How do you know it's a lie? Pedophilia is running rampant in this world. It's not just the US. It's not. It's the UK as well. Africa as well. Asia as well. It's all of them. It's all of them. But the US just so happens to be the biggest facilitator. And I want to know why that is. Let me take you on a quick history lesson. These illegal immigrants, these children that are being trafficked and put here in the US for all these fucking reasons, it's very similar to how America first got started in the first place. So nobody don't want to talk about that, right? Nobody wants to talk about that. When America first got started, the resources came from overseas. The resources included people, human beings. They were brought over here as slaves to build this country. Fast forward to where we are now with these children who are being forced into labor. How much have we evolved if this is happening? Still on US soil, it's still happening. I don't care about other countries right now. I care about the US right now. We have not evolved much at all. The same way we got started is still being perpetrated now. Except we're talking about far more immigrants of different races, but children. Hell no. Hell the fuck no. Hell no.
To me and so many others, the fear-mongering, the racist invasion rhetoric that you and extremist Republicans spread, in my opinion, is probably the truest threat to our homeland.
What the fuck is wrong with this lady? Does she know what kind of hearing this is? Does she know what the focus of this hearing is? Why are we talking about what somebody's personal interest in administration and what the hell they said about another administration? Listen, that is not why they're having the hearing. And this is the fucking problem. People like this need to get the fuck out of Congress. You're wasting taxpayers' time and dollars with this stupid shit. You're going back and forth. Why? Not to resolve the issue at hand. Simply to throw negative and derogatory rhetoric over to the other fucking side. Which y'all do that shit enough during election. It's over. Why are we still talking about that? We're trying to move on and fix our issues.
More than 6 years later, they may never be reunited with their parents. Trump has said that he will do it again. He will deport and separate families. Ms. Laren, can you tell us?
No, he will deport illegal immigrants. How is it our problem if illegal immigrants come over onto our soil pregnant or with children? That's our problem now? They're here illegally. How is that our problem? You're making taxpayers pay for illegal immigrants to be here. And you're talking about separating families? that ain't even supposed to be here? And we're supposed to feel a way about that. How is that our burden and our problem? What? These people are so out of touch with their humanity. It saddens me. It's sickening. It's so fucking frustrating. I can't tolerate none of these types of people. I don't want none of these types of people around me. They are so fucking triggering. My PTSD is just ready to fucking explode on everybody. This is how angry I am that this is the fucking bullshit that we have in Congress. This is what we have. People like this. This is what we have. This is what we do. This is why shit don't get done. This is why. People like this. This is why shit don't get done. What are we paying for as taxpayers? This is what we're paying for. They're paid not to handle problems, but to make arguments. That's it. It's the dumbest shit in the fucking world.
That's why it's been so difficult to reunite children separated under President Trump.
You know, there are several reasons. First, there was no planning before the separation policy was put in place. So DHS and ORR didn't have an opportunity to put procedures in place to track the children. There was no database that both agencies could access and share to track the whereabouts of the children. And in HHS's database, ORR's database, there was no field to indicate even whether the child had been separated from a parent. So it became a very labor-intensive paper process to reunite children with their family members that has taken many years and, as you say, is ongoing.
Do you think that particularly the babies, the toddlers, the 1-year-olds who were ripped away from their families will ever be reunited?
They were particularly difficult to reunite because they could not advocate for themselves.
Yeah, thank you.